Do you really want to know how much dentists get paid? If you're thinking about going into dentistry, or if you're already a dentist, then you may want to know what your income potential really looks like. And in this video, we're going to highlight the different stages of dentistry from a new graduate, then all the way up to practice ownership, and then even those who want to take it a step further to own multiple practices. Now, keep in mind that these numbers that we're going to discuss are only estimates, and they can vary based on several different factors. All right? So before we get going, if you're new here, I'm Dr. Jeff Anzalone, a periodontist on a mission to get you out of the rat race with passive income. Do me a favor and download the free passive income guide with the link below this video. All right, so let's start off with the new graduate. All right, this is somebody right out of dental school, and this is the first stage of a dentist career, okay? So the average billing for the new graduate is going to be somewhere around $250 to $300 per hour. All right. Again, this is an average. So with that, based on what the average billing is, they can expect an income range of anywhere from $140 to roughly about $180,000. Now, this is based on studies from the ADA, the American Dental Association. Again, these figures can either be higher or lower, depending on several different factors. So it's important to remember that these numbers that we're going to go over today, they factor in part-time dentists. So you could have a new graduate that's a part-time dentist. So it's all added, it's all calculated into the average, okay? That person that's going to be a part-time dentist may not align to what your particular career path is. So the income potential can shift significantly if you choose to work more hours, or if you relocate to an area that's, let's say, less popular. It's maybe a rural area, but these less populated and popular areas, usually those are the ones that have a higher demand for dental services. So for example, I know a dentist that after he graduated from dental school, he had a lot of student loan debt, and he took a job in one of these areas, these lower populated areas that had a higher demand for dental services. And as a new graduate, get this, right out of dental school, for his income, his take-home income for his first year was actually over $300,000, which is very rare for a new graduate. But in general, the new graduate in the right location and practice can expect to make, let's say, an average of about $150,000 a year. All right. Now, as you continue from the new graduate phase, keep getting your feet wet, you move on to the next stage, and that is one of the established associate phase. Okay. Here, dentists have gained more experience, they've increased their skills, and this is going to be somebody that's had roughly about 2 to 5 years of practice. All right. So this person, they've been practicing for 2 to 5 years. So this enables them now to perform more procedures and thus earn more money. Now, some of these dentists in this phase, they've taken courses to become more proficient in doing things such as molar root canals, complex aesthetic cases, placing dental implants, removing third molars, and even IV sedation. Now, the average billing for this phase is going to be somewhere along the line of $400 to $500 per hour, which again could be more, could be less. And in this stage, you can expect to make, and this is a pretty broad range, anywhere from $180,000 to $400,000 plus as an established associate. Now, new graduate, the average was $150,000 a year. For the established associate, the average is going to be about $250,000 a year. So we'll put average right here. All right. So it's normal in the US for a dental associate, somebody in this stage, to be paid 35% of collections, okay, that they bill. So for example, a dentist, to make this average salary, a dentist is going to need to bill about $700,000 to reach that salary. All right. So in this situation, they're going to have to produce about $2,800 a day, and average of 250 working days a year. And that's going to give this person $700,000 in production. And if you take that and you multiply it by 35%, and that's going to give you roughly about $240,000, which is roughly about what the average makes. Okay. Again, these are all average numbers, could be more, could be less. So to sum up this stage, the established associate can expect to make roughly 200, let's say $250,000. That's kind of average working full time. All right. And finally, we move on to the last stage, and that is practice ownership. Okay. So we're going to start off with somebody that owns a single practice, such as myself. Now, when you get to this stage, this is like the pinnacle of earning potential in dentistry, but it's not with everybody because it comes with its shares of challenges. Now, I actually rented space the first about 2 years when I got out of my training as a periodontist. I actually rented space from an endodontist that had room in a building he was renovating. He actually paid me. I shared his staff, his equipment, everything. I didn't take any more loans. He was very, very good to me. And he actually paid me 35% of collection. Now, once I got to the point where I was going to move out, I was really excited because now I get to purchase my own equipment, I get to purchase the building, and I get to be my own boss. But I had no idea of how demanding practice ownership could be. Why? Well, think about it. Nobody teaches you how to run a practice. Nobody teaches you how to hire employees, how to fire employees, run payroll, make your tax payments, talk to your CPA, find a CPA or anything that's involved in running a business or practice. Now, my brother is a civil engineer down the street, and he's very happy working in a group. I guess you would call it a group practice or group business. I don't know. But when I once asked him if he'd ever entertained the idea of starting his own civil engineering group, he told me that he didn't need any more headaches in his life to deal with. Smart guy. Now, but don't get me wrong. There are some great benefits of owning your own dental practice, as now, guess what? You're the boss. You now have complete control over the types of treatments that are going to be offered and actually how they're going to be delivered. Also, you're not limited to earning only when you're treating patients, because you can hire hygienists to work for you. Now, I actually hired my wife when I got out of my training, but word of caution, if you're going to hire your spouse. Seems to me, the longer they work, the more they want their salary to look like yours. Just saying. Now, let's take a look at some numbers, and let's start off with overhead. Okay, very important to know what overhead is. It's nothing more than the operating expenses of a dental practice. So this includes anything like paying your employee salaries, supplies, equipment, and the day-to-day costs, such as got to pay the lights, right? Got to pay the water, garbage, etc. So this is a big factor that comes into play when discussing the earning of practice owners. Typically, the overhead ranges anywhere from 50 to 70% of a single practice, but for our purposes, we're going to say the average is about a 60% overhead. That's a pretty good average. And according to the ADA, the average dentist owner bills around, remember this is average, $742,000. And if we assume a 60% overhead, that's going to be netting roughly about $300,000 per year. Okay, that's what the take home is for the owner. Again, this is an average for all the U.S. dentists. This includes the 80-year-old that's only working like 4 or 5 hours a day, 2 days a week, not really billing much, right? All the way to the 35 or 40-year-old practice owner working 5 days a week that bills $2 million a year. So the 80-year-old dentist is actually going to bring the average of the whole study down, right? So these numbers, again, are only an average, as it's not uncommon for somebody as a practice owner to take home over maybe $500,000 a year. And again, this is for the person that owns one practice. So let's move on to when the real magic starts to happen, is when you start to own multiple practices. Now, a friend of mine that I actually partner in several RV parks with, he's about 12 to 15 years younger than me. He owns 10 dental practices. Now, these practices are mainly associate-run practices, which actually allows him to not have to be present unless he chooses to do so. Now, somebody that owns multiple associate-run practices, they can expect to take home roughly about 20% of what these practices bill, like the total billing. So, for example, if somebody owns 5 associate-run practices that collect $1 million a year each, then that's going to be $1 million times 5. So that's going to be $5 million times 20%. So this person nets about million bucks a year. Not bad, right? But however, owning multiple practices doesn't come with its challenges as well, because you have to now become sort of the CEO, the overseer of all these different entities being formed. You have to manage multiple offices. You have to manage multiple staff and operations, and all this can become, as you can imagine, quite complex. Now, regardless, the more successful your practice or practices become, the more you can potentially earn. That's the great thing about dentistry, is that there are so many different ways to make money depending on whatever stage you are in your life. Now, you can work part-time as an associate, maybe 2 days a week, and make about $75,000 to $100,000, or you can own multiple practices without even having to treat patients, potentially making millions of dollars a year. Now, there's really no ceiling on what you can make as a dentist, and it's all about whichever path interests you the most. Now, remember, if you own a practice, this is also an income producing asset, which means at some point you're probably going to want to sell it. Now, this can also provide another stream of income to your portfolio. All right. So there you have it. Now you have these 3 stages of dentistry and what on average you can expect to make at each stage. And if you're interested in learning about the 7 habits that I learned after interviewing hundreds of millionaire dentists, like some of these people that own multiple practices, do me a favor, watch this next video.